Sunni Islam is a denomination of Islam which holds that the Islamic prophet Muhammad's first caliph was his father-in-law Abu Bakr. Sunni Islam primarily contrasts with Shi'a Islam, which holds that Muhammad's son-in-law and cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib, not Abu Bakr, was his first caliph. Sunni Islam is by far the largest denomination of Islam. As of 2009, Sunni Muslims constituted 87 to 90% of the world's Muslim population. Its adherents are referred to in Arabic as Ahl-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, people of the tradition of Muhammad and the consensus of the Ummah, or Ahl-Sunnah for short. In English, its theological study or doctrine is called Sunnism, while adherents are known as Sunni Muslims, Sunnis, Sunnites and Ahl-Sunnah. Sunni Islam is the world's largest religious denomination, followed by Catholicism. Sunni Islam is sometimes referred to as Orthodox Islam. The word Sunni comes from the term Sunnah, which refers to the sayings and actions of the Islamic prophet Muhammad as recorded in the Hadith, the primary collections consisting of Kutub al-Sitta accepted by Sunni Orthodoxy, in conjunction with the Quran and binding consensus, formed the basis of all jurisprudence within Sunni Islam. Laws are derived from these basic sources. In addition, Sunni Islam's juristic schools recognize differing methods to derive legal verdicts such as analogical reason, consideration of public welfare and juristic discretion. Lexicology. Sunni, also commonly referred to as Sunnism, is a term derived from sunnah meaning habit, usual practice, custom, tradition. The Muslim use of this term refers to the sayings and living habits of the Prophet Muhammad. In its full form, this branch of Islam is referred to as Ahl-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, people claiming to follow the Sunnah who can demonstrate that they have no action or belief against the prophetic Sunnah can consider themselves to be Sunni Muslims. One who espouses political Sunnite beliefs or specializes in Sunnism is sometimes called a Sunnist. Some regions that are heavily Sunni populated have been coined with derived neological terms such as Sunnistan, a Sunni belt, and a demonym for an inhabitant of this roughly defined geocultural region is a Sunnistani. Some followers of Shi'ism refer to Sunnis using derogatory epithets such as Nasibi and Bakri. History. One common mistake is to assume that the Sunni denomination represents Islam as it existed before the divisions, and should be considered as normative, or the standard. This perception is partly due to the reliance on highly ideological sources that have been accepted as reliable historical works, and also because the vast majority of the population is Sunni, and this narrative suits the denomination, even though it is far from accurate. Both Sunnism and Shi'ism are the end products of several centuries of competition between ideologies. Both sects used each other to further cement their own identities and divisions. The first four caliphs are known among Sunnis as the Rashidun, or rightly guided ones. Sunni recognition includes the aforementioned Abu Bakr as the first, Umar who established the Islamic calendar as the second, Uthman as the third, and Ali as the fourth. The sequence of events of the 20th century has led to resentment in some quarters of the Sunni community due to the loss of preeminence in several previously Sunni-dominated regions such as the Levant, Mesopotamia, the Balkans and the Caucasus. Adherents. Sunnis believe that the companions of Muhammad were the best of Muslims. This belief is based upon prophetic traditions such as one narrated by Abdullah, son of Masud, in which Muhammad said, "The best of the people are my generation, then those who come after them, then those who come after them." Support for this view is also found in the Quran. According to Sunnis, Sunnis also believe that the companions were true believers, since it was the companions who were given the task of compiling the Quran. Furthermore, narrations that were narrated by the companions are considered by Sunnis to be a second source of knowledge of the Muslim faith. A study conducted by the Pew Research Center in 2010 and released January 2011 found that there are 1.62 billion Muslims around the world, and it is estimated over 75 to 90% are Sunni. Organizational structure. Islam does not have a formal hierarchy of clergy. Leaders are informal and gain influence through study to become a scholar of Islamic law, called Sharia. According to the Islamic Center of Columbia, South Carolina, anyone with the intelligence and will can become an Islamic scholar. During midday mosque services on Fridays, the congregation will choose a well-educated person to lead the service, known as a khatib. Schools of law. There are several intellectual traditions within the field of Islamic law, often referred to as legal schools. These varied traditions reflect differing viewpoints on some laws and obligations within Islamic law. While one school may see a certain act as a religious obligation, another may see the same act as optional. These schools aren't regarded as sects, rather, they represent differing viewpoints on issues that are not considered the core of Islamic belief. Historians have differed regarding the exact delineation of the schools based on the underlying principles they follow. Many traditional scholars saw Sunni Islam in two groups: Ahlul-Rai, or people of reason, due to their emphasis on scholarly judgment and discourse, and Ahlul-Hadith, or people of traditions, due to their emphasis on restricting juristic thought to only what is found in scripture. Ibn Khaldun defined the Sunni schools as three: the Hanafi school representing reason, the Ahirite school representing tradition, and a broader middle school encompassing the Shafi'ite, Malikite and Hanbalite schools. During the Middle Ages, the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt delineated the acceptable Sunni schools as only Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i and Hanbali, excluding the Ahiri school. The Ottoman Empire later reaffirmed the official status of four schools as a reaction to the Shiite character of their ideological and political arch-rival. The Persian Safavids, though former Prime Minister of Sudan al-Sadiq al-Mahdi, as well as the Amman message issued by King Abdullah II of Jordan, recognize the Ahiri and keep the number of Sunni schools at 5. Differences in the schools interpreting Islamic law by deriving specific rulings, such as how to pray, is commonly known as Islamic jurisprudence. The schools of law all have their own particular tradition of interpreting this jurisprudence, as these schools represent clearly spelled out methodologies for interpreting Islamic law. There has been little change in the methodology with regard to each school. While conflict between the schools was often violent in the past, today the schools recognize one another as viable legal methods rather than sources of error or heresy in contrast to one another. Each school has its evidences, and differences of opinion are generally respected. 6 Pillars of Viman. Sunni Islam has 6 articles of faith known as the 6 Pillars of Viman that all Sunni Muslims are united on in belief, along with the 105 key points of creed mentioned in At-Tahawi's Islamic theology. Reality of the one true God. Existence of the angels of God, authority of the books of God which are scrolls of Abraham, the scrolls of Moses, the Torah, the Psalms, the Gospel and the Quran, following the prophets of God, preparation for and belief in the Day of Judgment, supremacy of God's will, i.e., belief in predestination, good or bad is from God alone. Theological Traditions. Some Islamic scholars faced questions that they felt were not explicitly answered in the Quran and the Sunnah, especially questions with regard to philosophical conundrums such as the nature of God, the existence of human free will, or the eternal existence of the Quran. Various schools of theology and philosophy developed to answer these questions, each claiming to be true to the Quran and the Muslim tradition. Among Sunni Muslims, various schools of thought in theology began to be born out of the sciences of Kalam in opposition to the textualists who stood by affirming texts, without delving into philosophical speculation as they saw it as an innovation in Islam. The following were the three dominant schools of theology that grew. All three of these are accepted by Muslims around the globe, and are considered within Islamic orthodoxy. The key beliefs of Sunni Islam are all agreed upon and codified in the treatise on Aqidah by Imam Ahmad ibn Muhammad al-Tahawi in his Aqidat Tahawiyya. Maturidi, founded by Abu Mansur al-Maturidi. Maturidiya was a minority tradition until it was accepted by the Turkish tribes of Central Asia. One of the tribes, the Seljuk Turks, migrated to Turkey, where later the Ottoman Empire was established. The preferred school of law achieved a new prominence throughout the whole empire, although it continued to be followed almost exclusively by followers of the Hanafi school, while followers of the Shafi'i and Maliki schools within the empire followed the Ash'ari and Athari schools of thought. Thus, wherever can be found Hanafi followers, there can be found the Maturidi creed. Ash'ari, founded by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. This theological school of Aqidah was embraced by many Muslim scholars and developed in parts of the Islamic world throughout history. The Imam al-Ghazali wrote on the creed discussing it and agreeing upon some of its principles. Ash'ari theology stresses divine revelation over human reason. Contrary to the Mutazilites, they say that ethics cannot be derived from human reason, but that God's commands, as revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah, are the sole source of all morality and ethics. Regarding the nature of God and the divine attributes, the Ash'ari rejected the Mutazili position that all Quranic references to God as having real attributes were metaphorical. The Ash'aris insisted that these attributes were as they best befit His Majesty. The Arabic language is a wide language in which one word can have 15 different meanings. So the Ash'aris endeavor to find the meaning that best befits God and is not contradicted by the Quran. Therefore, when God states in the Quran, "He who does not resemble any of His creation," this clearly means that God cannot be attributed with body parts because He created body parts. Ash'aris tend to stress divine omnipotence over human free will, and they believe that the Quran is eternal and uncreated. Traditionalist theology is a movement of Islamic scholars who reject rationalistic Islamic theology in favor of strict textualism in interpreting the Quran and Sunnah. The name derives from tradition, in its technical sense as translation of the Arabic word hadith. It is also sometimes referred to by several other names. Adherents of traditionalist theology believe that the Zahir meaning of the Quran and the Hadith have sole authority in matters of belief and law, and that the use of rational disputation is forbidden even if it verifies the truth. They engage in a literal reading of the Quran, as opposed to one engaged in ta'wil. They do not attempt to conceptualize the meanings of the Quran rationally, and believe that the realities should be consigned to God alone. In essence, the text of the Quran and Hadith is accepted without asking how or by Laqaifa. Traditionalist theology emerged amongst scholars of Hadith who eventually coalesced into a movement called Ahl al-Hadith under the leadership of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. In matters of faith, they were pitted against Mu'tazilites and other theological currents, condemning many points of their doctrine as well as the rationalistic methods they used in defending them. In the 10th century, al-Ash'ari and al-Maturidi found a middle ground between Mu'tazilite rationalism and Hanbalite literalism, using the rationalistic methods championed by Mu'tazilites to defend most tenets of the traditionalist doctrine. Although the mainly Hanbali scholars who rejected this synthesis were in the minority, their emotive, narrative-based approach to faith remained influential among the urban masses in some areas, particularly in Abbasid Baghdad. While Ash'arism and Maturidism are often called the Sunni orthodoxy, traditionalist theology has thrived alongside it, laying rival claims to be the orthodox Sunni faith. In the modern era, it has had a disproportionate impact on Islamic theology, having been appropriated by Wahhabi and other traditionalist Salafi currents and spread well beyond the confines of the Hanbali school of law. Sunni view of Hadith. The Quran as it exists today in book form was compiled by Muhammad's companions within a handful of months of his death, and is accepted by all sects of Islam. However, there were many matters of belief and daily life that were not directly prescribed in the Quran, but were actions that were observed by Muhammad and the early Muslim community. Later generations sought out oral traditions regarding the early history of Islam and the practices of Muhammad and his first followers, and wrote them down so that they might be preserved. These recorded oral traditions are called hadith. Muslim scholars have through the ages sifted through the hadith and evaluated the chain of narrations of each tradition, scrutinizing the trustworthiness of the narrators and judging the strength of each hadith accordingly. Kutub al-Sittah. Kutub al-Sittah are 6 books containing collections of hadiths. Sunni Muslims accept the hadith collections of Bukhari and Muslim as the most authentic, and while accepting all hadiths verified as authentic, grant a slightly lesser status to the collections of other recorders. There are, however, 4 other collections of hadith that are also held in particular reverence by Sunni Muslims, making a total of 6. Sahih al-Bukhari of Muhammad al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim of Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj, Sunan al-Safra of al-Nasa'i, Sunan Abu Dawud of Abu Dawud, Jami' at-Tirmidhi of al-Tirmidhi, Sunan Ibn Majah of Ibn Majah. There are also other collections of hadith which also contain many authentic hadith and are frequently used by scholars and specialists. Examples of these collections include Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq of Abd al-Razzaq as-Sanani, Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Mustadrak of al-Hakim, Muwatta of Imam Malik, Sahih ibn Hibban, Sahih ibn Khuzaimah of Ibn Khuzaimah, Sunan al-Darimi of al-Darimi.